Going through a few simple groundwork exercises with your horse before you ride is a really great way to just sort of warm them up if they're an older horse, or if they're a green horse, teach them some things that you can apply in the saddle. I'm Julia, this is Rumba, and we're here with Emily and Rushmore, and we're going to go through a few exercises you can do with your horse to get them ready for your ride. Now, Rumba is going to be the example of sort of the finished version of how these things look, and then we're going to talk through it with Rushmore and Emily. Emily, can you tell me a little bit about Rushmore's background?
Yeah, he's an 8-year-old thoroughbred off the track. His last race was in 2021. He's had about 11 races.
Great. And you've been working with him for the last few months.
Yep.
And he's a really solid guy. He just doesn't know a ton yet.
Exactly.
Perfect. So I think these will be good for him. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to have them soften and lower their neck from the pole. So when I'm teaching a horse to do this for the first time, it's going to take a little bit more pressure than what she's going to show, but I'll just put my hand and press on their pole to get them to release down. And then as soon as he releases, letting go. She's going to come back. That's okay. What this is doing is just sort of getting them to stretch through their top line and soften up. I know your girlfriend's here. There. And what we're looking for all of these exercises is really just small changes. We're not looking for a big dramatic thing. It's just little things that we can see that they're doing. This is great to practice even if it's too cold to ride. This is something that I'll come in and just kind of work with her, getting her to stretch and soften her top line. There, that was really nice. Yeah, there you go. This can also be super helpful if a horse is hard to bridle.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're reaching up here and just getting them to lower their head. That way you're not having to reach for a giraffe.
Stretch all the way
Yeah. All right, that's looking really good. The second exercise I like to do is getting them to move their shoulders. So I think especially for green horses, getting them to feel the different parts of their body and be able to move them independently is really helpful, and it translates well to the saddle then. So when we're asking, what we can do is just sort of step in front, and then what I'll do is just kind of tap her shoulder a little bit and get her to step with just moving her shoulders. Yep, and that's perfect. You're just there you go. And that was perfect. He gave you one solid step and then you release. That was exactly how you want to ask for that. So we can do that again. And it's just this simple idea that this doesn't necessarily translate perfectly to the saddle, but that he can move the different parts of his body independently. Now, I know you've been working on a lot of bending with him, getting him to be more supple, and this is just showing him that, hey, I can move my shoulders independently of my hindquarters. All right, I think we might be shifting on the frame a little bit. And I always you want to practice this both directions, so getting him to move both sides of his body. Yep. And that's okay if it takes him just a little longer to figure it out. Good boy. And you could, if a horse is, I would say, pretty desensitized to cues, this is something that you could use a whip for. Okay. I don't feel like he necessarily needs it because he's pretty sensitive. Yes. And he isn't desensitized to cues. So I think it's appropriate to not use a whip in this case, but you would always have the option to do that. All right, we'll just get another step. And I'm not really looking for her to necessarily step one foot in front of the other. I'm just looking for her to move. She's a little too close to her friend now. I'm just looking for her to move one step to just kind of get freer in those shoulders. . There we go. That's looking really nice. All right, the next exercise we're going to do is moving the hindquarters. Okay. This one I feel like is usually a little bit easier for horses because they do carry the majority of their weight on their front end, as you know. Yeah. But so this moving the shoulders is a little more challenging. So let's go ahead and try that with the hindquarters. So what I'll do is it can be, again, a really slight movement. So Rumba's pretty sensitized to it, but I'm just going to use my rope, my lead rope, and just ask for one step. And that's it. You could even try it with your reins if you want to flip your reins over. I have a feeling he's going to be pretty responsive to this one too. There. Good boy. And you want to try it the other direction? There, that was really nice. And again, it's just about building, so we're just getting one step at a time today because this is the first time we've worked through these with him. But I would just build on it every time and ask for just a little bit more each time you're coming out to ride. This is even something that you could do if you aren't necessarily going to ride that day, but you just want to have something that you're working on with him. It's a great thing to just spend a couple minutes doing.
Is this something that we could do even before our ride too?
Absolutely.
It's a good stretch for him?
It's a great warm-up. The fourth and final exercise we're going to do is shifting their weight back. Now, the sort of end result that we're looking for with this is for them to take a step back, but it's okay if that's not the step that we make today. What I really want to see him do is just shift his body weight back to his hindquarters. Okay. So a lot of times, like I was just saying, like they have a lot more weight on their front feet, so they'll sort of pull themselves along, kind of just teaching them that shift back. She's obviously exhausted. Teaching them to shift back just sort of practices putting a little bit more weight on the hind end and teaching that awareness of movement. So what I'll do for this is, if you want to just put your hand on his noseband, Emily has his noseband nice and loose, which is something I like to see, that their mouth isn't, you know, super, they're not able to lick and chew and move their tongue, so that's great. So what I'll do is I'll think about sort of what I would do if I was riding. Okay. So I'm thinking about moving my center and just kind of pushing her energy back. And she just did the slightest shift. Yes. Like he's just doing, you see that? That's very slight. That's okay. Okay. It's just him thinking about shifting his center of mass back. So he's about to fall asleep.
He's a sleepy boy.
So go ahead and just kind of think about, yeah. And you can be a little stronger in your arm to just kind of wake him up and yeah, there. There we go. Yep. Do you feel the difference between, he was just sort of tightening in his shoulders, and then once he settled into it, he shifted back. That was super nice.
And then for the release, I'm letting go completely.
Yes. Yeah, but again, so with all of these exercises, we're just getting this first step, like I mentioned, but we can continue to build on that. There might be some days where you might feel like he takes a step back and you can only ask for so much, but we want to see all of these exercises progress. We want to get more steps out of them and get more softness and responsiveness is sort of the end goal. But do you have any questions?
I think that's it.
All right, great. Well, we'll keep you updated on Rushmore's progress. Thank you so much for sharing him with us today.
Thank you.